Okay, so we continue in the Sefer page Kuf Yud Gimel 136 in English, and entitled HaShabbos Rega Shel Or, Shabbos, a moment of light, and begin Shabbos Melemedes Osano es Shloshes Yesod Yisrael. Shabbos teaches us three foundational ideas. What are they? Number one, Shakadosh Baruch Hu Adon Hakol. God is the master of everything. Okay, this is number one. Number two, V'yachal Elokim B'yom Hashvi Malachto Asher Asah Hashem Hu Elokim Haborei Yotzer L'chol Maasav Rishus. That God is the creator of all, and He is the one who brought about the Maasav Rishus, the creation of the universe. And then three, Vayishvos B'yom Hashvi'i, and He rested on the seventh day, Mikol Malachto Asher Asah, from all of the malacha that He performed. Okay.
I know that Hashem is a forces.
Well, I think that you can't have any mitzvah unless you believe in this, right? Like, why should unless you believe in that idea? That's like number one right there for anything. Why should I don't know, why should I separate meiser if I do anything, right? So I just think it's a foundational idea. But let's see what he says. So, as lo rakshu adon olam umechayes hakol, it's not just that He's the master of the world and He gives everyone life. Mushbas. In that moment, everything rests. There is nothing else in the world. So the principle the expression that we use is ein od milvado. There is none other than God. That's it's sort of like a cliche phrase, but if you really believe it, it's a powerful notion. There's nothing else. There's no other worry in the world. There's no other concern. There's no other preoccupation. One of the biggest sources of stress, at least for me, anxiety, is feeling that you are torn in different directions, feeling like you owe everyone something, a piece of you, and that idea that you're always being pulled in different directions. So I think Ein Od Milvado, Emuna, is you could say, like, well, what you have to work on is you have to just say no, and you have to make boundaries, and all that's true in the secular world. But the ultimate boundary is Ein Od Milvado. That if HaKadosh Baruch Hu is in charge of the world, you never have to worry about, you don't have a suffix. There are no doubts. Do I do this endeavor? Do I do this one? Do I say yes here or no here? You always have a halachic principle. You always have Torah to guide you. So if you live a life of Ein Od Milvado, there's a certain calm that sets in there. And that's what we feel on Shabbos, I think. That's what I experience. I'm confusing you. Okay. All right. So, but like from a purely sort of psychological standpoint, I think Shabbos, that Ein Od Milvado, is a powerful concept to integrate in your lives. Shesh Shemot HaKodesh, the 6 names of God that are used. So Vaya, Adnos, Vaya, then there's Vaya Lokim, then there's Ekya, which are the Gematria B'diuk Ma'asayim Chamishim Ner, 250, which is candle. Okay,
he's counting Havaya as one of the names, even though he repeats it. There's 6 names in the show.
Right, it's Hashem Adoshem, Hashem Elokim, and Hashem Ekeh. Because that's the way He's listed in the Torah, right? Hashem says Ekeh, sure. Anyway, those permutations of those 6, total 250, which is Ner. So the Havaya of Adnos is the Gematria of 91, Havaya of Elokim is the Gematria of 112, Havaya of Ekeh is 47, total it's 250. Good. When we light the candle, what are we doing? We're not just opening our eyes to reality, as we said, but the reality is we open up our eyes to the reality that we've been ignoring willfully or because we've been preoccupied the whole week, which is that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is the Adon HaKol, Hashem is in charge of everything, Hashem is the Manhig, is the Machai, He feeds everyone, He supports everyone, and there is none other than God. So imagine what is a candle doing? It's not just the sort of the symbolic idea of turning on a candle in a dark room and saying, now I recognize who's running my life. It's that there's an air, there's 250 is the gematria of the Shemos Hashem, that you're literally lighting the names of God. You're igniting the name of God in your life. That's this idea he's quoting. I don't know what his source is, but I'm sure it's rooted in one of the Sifrei Kabbalah Chasidus. This is the secret that's hidden in Shabbos, which also has a prohibition of malacha. The idea that a candle of Shabbos is simply just the end of work and a signal that you have to start keeping Shabbos is wrong, right? Yeah, it's that. Wait a minute, hold on a minute. Who was I working for all along? Who was behind the scenes all along? What was I blinded to during the week? Right? It's not that okay. I was living my best life during the week, doing these things exactly. It's almost as if you realize, wait a minute, I'm not. I wasn't in reality. I wasn't holding by truth until now. And it's a different message. And if you tell kids like this is the time you got to get off your phone, you got to stop the malachi, stop work. It's kind of difficult to explain that, right? But this idea is a lot more empowering. This is a greater message that God is giving us through the means of Shabbos. And what is that message? During the week, the person is hurrying up to do all of his or her business that they have to get done. The emsa tefillah and the othilu klar, kofitz l'soch mechoniso, that image of the guy leaving shul to get in the car during Kaddish, right? You're running into your car already. Tas lavoda, you're flying to work. Neshu maschal avod, who owed maspik echshu lishtos kos cafe, right? He has time to drink the cup of coffee. I do it while I'm working, which is good. He didn't have time to, there's no time, right? It doesn't even dream. Daydream, right? There's no time to think. Also, kos cafe, no saying lo eskoach lahachzik mamad at shos hatzaraim. That cup of coffee is holding you until noon, hamucheres, and then gam az ein lo zman lityashev lechol arucha shemam. You can't even eat a proper meal. Right? What do we do? What do we eat for lunch when we're working? Not properly, right? What do you do? I used to make certain like CRC meetings over lunch because I knew that I forced myself to eat every now and then properly and then I get work done. Then maybe I time for otherwise. So it was like lunch. It was a working lunch. I know people do it regularly in the real world, but this idea of not making time for the things that you need to do is pretty typical, I guess. Oh, now everything's in person. Now everything's in person. No, we were meeting with masks and then we're like, I actually got one of these masks that have a flap open up and you could no. We just had a wonderful shiur, 20 or so rabbis we organized. We do that every 2 months. Based in, and he was talking about Purim and drinking. This very interesting shiur. Okay, so I mean there were many sources. I'll share afterwards. I'll go through some of the highlights. Yeah. So anyway, shoyef liot ashir uchayev lahaspik. And you're so thirsty to be, so longing to be rich. That's the weekday. It's a rush. It's a mad rush. There's no time for anything. No time for anyone. Shabbos arrives. Today you're invited to my table. You have nowhere to go. There's no how do you translate? There's no quick right snack and a coffee, right? Yeah, grab and go. There's none of that. Kan kvar mugshim matamim niflaim. There are many great tastes that are in front of us. Mana rishona chala, gefilte fish, kol minei salatim, chamutzim, different salads, marashnia, marak, soup, and yamana ikarit, ofim tosafot. Now meat, right? The manachona, the kinuach, the dessert, kol tov shbolom, what's the greatest thing in the world? Makar, what happens? How do you suddenly have time to do this? This is people who see their first Shabbos meal, they think it's crazy. Who does this anymore, right? Like there's an episode of Downton Abbey. Everyone's over now. The next course. This isn't, but we do it every week. Because the one thing is, you don't have to rush to get things done. There's no mad rush to become rich and to become this and to close some deal. There, it's closed already. Zui Shabbos, Rega Shel Or, Gam B'Muvan HaGashmi. Even in the physical. So what it's doing is, this is essentially why the physical is elevating on Shabbos. Right? You would think a spiritual day shouldn't have any physical component, like a Yom Kippur. A different mentality. But the opposite is true. What's really happening is we're showing you that even the physical world all belongs to Hashem. And Ad Kei Kach, that the way we eat our food, and the way we conceive of our meals, and the way we think about our time during the week is much different than the way we think of it on Shabbos. And so it elevates the food in that sense. Hine, Hakol Yofa Hakol Tov V'Yofa. A lot of our holidays are revolving around food. Not just because it's like they're holiday foods, but
Real.
well, Yom Kippur is the who needs to eat, because you're on such a level, you're not even physical at all. Purim, the Maharal Miprag says that you are so indulgent in the physical that you're spiritual. Meaning it's the opposite side. It's Kippurim, the opposite side, right? Like there are two ways to show you that a guf is meaningless. One way is to completely come devoid of anything physical, right? To be an ascetic, to live your life separate from those physical needs and urges. The other way to show you that physical life is not the emes, not the truth, is to overindulge in it. The point is that you lose the dignity of the guf and you realize, wait a minute, I'm much deeper than this. And the outside peels away, kind of like dead skin, just sheds. Now, just in a neshama at that point. Hopefully, hopefully that the goodness of a person comes out, the badness of a person comes out, and you have what to work on the soul level. That's a different story, right? And you have to know yourself. But even with food, even with endless gifts and endless physical indulgences, it's a spiritual day somehow, right? What do? We're giving everyone food, giving everyone money. Everything is good. This feeling of loftiness takes hold of us on Shabbos. It only lasts until Saturday night. After you say Hamavdil, Mishtane hakol me'amatzav hamufla shel or bo hainu shiruim b'Shabbos Kodesh. The situation that is the light, right? And we are dwelling in Shabbos Kodesh. We return to the days of Chulin. Mechayim bedargas Yehudi. We're living as a Jew. Shavim anu lichora litzuras chaim shel. So we go back from Jew to Gentile, going from Shabbos to week. Now, what does that mean? Does that mean like every Friday night every Friday we hop in the mikvah and now all of a sudden we're Jewish again, and then we lose that status? Is that what it means? So we actually, in the language of Havdalah, we say Hamavdil ben Kodesh L'chol, ben Or L'choshu, ben Yisrael Amim, ben Yom HaShlishi. And one of the contrasts is ben Yisrael Amim. What does that mean? What does it mean to be a Jew? Right, that's a good question. Is a Jew observant of Torah mitzvos? Is a Jew? What does a Jew mean? So the answer is sort of being in touch with that reality of Eino Milvado in this definition. How do we not, when we say Hamavdil Havdalah, how do we hold on to that Shabbos a little bit? One of them is Zachor Yom HaShabbat L'Kadsho. Remember Shabbos to make it holy. We remember Shabbos even during the week. And by the way, what do we say each day? We say Hayom Yom. Today we say Hayom Yom Revi B'Shabbos. Call the week Shabbos. Chazal felt when they established those tefillos that every day of the week is called part of the week, part of the Shabbos. It's not just another term. It's not like Shalom means goodbye and Shalom means hello. It's that Shabbos actually is the definition of everything. And you are always holding by something, right? There's Shabbos Kodesh, and then there's Rishon B'Shabbos, Sheni B'Shabbos, right? So
do something for Shabbos every day. Like shopping for
yeah.
Shabbos on Monday, and you go.
And these potatoes for Shabbos today, and these eggs for Shabbos is tomorrow, right? That's the way the Hasidim say you should do the food and the purchases. So, in fact, it's funny when I get a new suit, we're now in a purging state. I have to get rid of all the order anything that's really baggy, because we're not allowed to wear baggy things anymore. And all the suits from 5-6 years ago were all baggy, apparently. I hope so, because I can't breathe and I can't walk. My knees always. Well, no, but skinny suits, the Europeans made everything, all the skinny clothing popular. Smoking and eating and everyone skinny. So I don't know. I don't know, but I was commanded to engage in a purge of my closet. Some blog that someone in my house saw, and therefore I have to listen to it because it's the new gospel. And now and while I was doing that, I realized, so when you buy a new suit, so all my Shabbos suits get demoted. A Shabbos suit is demoted to a weekday suit, and then buy a new suit for Shabbos. So this is, so what do I do when I wear clothing during the week? I'm really wearing a Shabbos outfit. It's really something with Chavod Shabbos. Okay. When I do retire, I'm definitely not wearing a tie. There's no better definition of chukas akum than a tie. It does not. It serves no purpose. What is this? Like, oh, I really need to cover the center of my buttons. This is not sanua. This is, oh, no, I'm so ashamed. Like, well, says who? Like, why? Why is that? So it's only being done because someone decided that this is what you wear. It's absolutely, it's all fashion. Doesn't mean anything. So if it's part of a uniform, like you have to be identified as a police officer, so wear the jacket or colors. You have to be identified as a waiter, so you wear the waiter of the outfit of that restaurant. So this is not chukas akum. I mean, chukas akum is defined as doing something for no reason, doing it just because it's being done.
How do you do it?
Because I'm fitting, I guess. Well, it helps people identify a uniform, I guess. But it's not a formal uniform. Don't wear tires.
No.
Don't wear ties. Right. That's how there's just somebody just pass out and like, oh, he was so good. He was such a great person. That's what happens to him. All right. Tov. Okay. Ulam. That's the one speech I wish I could hear. I'm not going to hear it. So there's no point. Yeah. Yeah. It's a waste. It's a waste. Pretty dark. Okay. B'tzeisa Shabbos. When Shabbos leaves. Sorry. Ulam sof kol sof. Shabbos he or. B'mosach chol choshech. Oh, I skipped a line, right? So we have this Zechor Simon Shabbos Kodesh, Liskor Malach. So then we have Malava Malka. In Yona Knasas Gashmius Shul Shabbos Lamotzi Shabbos. What you're doing is you're bringing Gashmius physicality of Shabbos into the Motzi Shabbos, which is the Man Shel Chulin. You're dragging Shabbos into Motzi Shabbos. Amir Noam Motzi Shabbos. We say the V'Noam paragraph. The idea is the bringing the Ruchnis of Shabbos into the Chol. Zui Tefillah Linotzel mean Hashachel v'peten ushar mechsholam naroim shishna b'masachol. Save you from all the physical obstacles and the various stumbling blocks of the weekday. Now, what's interesting is that there's a halacha. There's a paragraph we say Motzei Shabbos called V'Noam, and then we basically say Uva Latzion afterwards. That's every Motzei Shabbos. Some people say V'Tiam Lecha, which is we do here a bunch of beautiful psukim and Mamar Chazal about just different divrei bracha. But V'Noam is very important. When do we not say V'Noam on Motzei Shabbos? We skip it when we don't have a full work week. What does that mean? It doesn't mean like, oh, Memorial Day is. It means that there's a yontif that week. Why? If you don't have a full week, you don't need the bracha of that. My handiwork should be elevated. Because already we have a yontif attitude. We have a yontif in the Motzei Shabbos. You never end the Shabbos and go to Chol. It's only when you're going to a full Chol week that you say this idea of V'Noam. So in the end of the day, Shabbos or Moshe Chol is Choshech. V'im kach matzav nidme ki kimat lo nitin la'apik to'elet mikdusha Shabbos. B'doma davar la'adam nichnas lemachzavat yahalomim umamali kiso by bilomim notitzim v'ikarim. Person goes into a chamber filled with a mine where they can mine out these precious diamonds, right? And but as you leave, you empty your pockets out because you don't want to travel. You want to travel light, right? That's the famous mashal of the guy who travels overseas and he brings back chicken schmaltz. That's the guy there. He says he went for 20 years and he brought back chicken schmaltz. Yeah, but I'm the wealthiest chicken fat person in the world. You remember the story, right?
Yes,
Right.
yeah.
Beach is full of diamonds. Okay. So
Mm.
this is the person is very poor, and they hear this is exotic land that they have lots of diamonds. He's going to go travel. He brings a whole ship with him, he gets to the shore, and the sand is all diamonds. He fills his pockets, he's rolling around in the sand. He's like, "This is incredible." Goes to the store, and he's like, "I'd like a cup of coffee." And he puts a diamond on the counter. It's worthless here. It's we our commodity is chicken fat. So he eventually, after 20 years, becomes very wealthy, and he becomes the biggest chicken fat producer in that island, in that world that he's now in. And he fills up like 3 giant ships, and brings them back to his home, and he comes back, and he's like a wealthy person. He comes back to his wife. 20 years later, what do you make of himself? Did you find any wealth? He says, well, I found 3 boats filled with chickens. It's where the wealthiest people in the world. What you do, it's worthless here. So it's a muscle for olam hazeh and olam haba, that we accumulate these things that we think are wealth in this world. And then we get to olam haba, and we get diamonds. Torah, it was mitzvot, it was midos tovos, it was chasadim, and we left it aside to accumulate trash because someone told us subjectively that that was worthwhile. So, but here's a person who leaves Shabbos, and what do? They empty their pockets. I'm done with Shabbos. First thing to do, the moment you turn on the phone, Motzi Shabbos, there's a moment of, I'm done with this. No longer engagements. Says Shabbos, Chag Choser Adam Lamatzavo Kodem. You go back to the previous place. Manishar, what remains? What's in your hands? Shabbos Hakidusha. What's left from the Holy Shabbos? Also, Moadim Niflayim Ba'af Meromos Hamufla Ela Zach Litzrom B'Yom Kippur. You could even ask from the elevated experience that we experienced on Yom Kippur. L'shem kach nisnu lanu yimei Chanukah. This is why, by the way, Chanukah was given to us. What's Chanukah? We talked about this a little while ago. Shabbos Noramis Adam El Kedusha. Shabbos elevates you to Kedusha. The Ner Chanukah in Yano Laha'ir Esa or Kedusha Shabbos Pesochi Mosachol. The theme. Remember, we talked about 36 candles. We talked about the Lamed Vav Tzadikim, the Lamed Vav hours of Adam and Chava and Gan Eden. Well, we're exposing ourselves to that hidden light during the Chol. My wife told me that growing up in a family that wasn't religious, that her favorite holiday was always Hanukkah, because as a young girl who was from, but her family wasn't, it was the only time that she didn't feel like she was living in contradiction. It was always a special holiday for her. It was the light of Kedusha in the Chol. My kids say it's their favorite holiday because they get presents. The thing that message continues to inspire. Remez Akach, we have a hint for this. Matzinu Gemara, Me'olam lo yarda shchina lemata. The divine presence never went down below the horizon. Below Alu Moshe in Marom. Shinamar Hashemayim Shemayim Hashem. La'aretz nasan livnei Adam. God stays in His domain. Man stays in our domain. Lo yarda shchina lemata, but the shchina never came here. It doesn't say Vayar Hashem al Har Sinai lemala me'asar tfachim, above 10 tfachim. Man ascended. God descended rather to our world. Our world is below 10 tfachim. Hashem came into that world and hovered back here. And says they stood on their legs on Har Zeisim. Did Moshe not go up? Didn't say Moshe Allah Elokim. Moshe went up to Hashem. Lamatam Asar. That was below Asar. So we have this idea that didn't the Shechina go down? No, Shechina never went below 10 tfach. Didn't it says Va'amdu Ragla b'yomahu Har Zeisim? No, Hashem never went fully down onto Har Zeisim. Didn't Moshe and Eliyahu go up? No, Moshe went up only below 10 tfachim. He never elevated above that. Didn't say Eliyahu b'sara Shemaim. Didn't Eliyahu go up in the whirlwind? No, that was below 10 tfachim. So really, God never descends to our world and we never ascend to His world. That's the Gemara says. There's really this gap where He doesn't exist and we don't exist. There's this place where we don't go and this place where He doesn't go. And of course, we know in halacha of Shabbos is very important. If you want to carry on Shabbos, you can't go from a Rosh Hashayachid to Rosh Hashanah. Can't go from a private domain to a public domain. And what is that difference between a public domain and a private domain? Usually 10 tfachim. 10 tfachim is at 40 inches. According to, depends what sheet. No. Yeah, 10 tefach. A tefach is this high. Like on a typical hand, average man's hand, this with the thumb on top. So 10 of these. It's about 40 inches or something. The Gemara says, what about like giants, like Og? We don't go by Og. Og Melech HaBashan is not our standard. He was tall, according to one opinion. He was 10 feet tall. He lifted the roof of the Mishkan above, right? He never stepped ladder. There's a Gemara like that also, yeah. Yeah, that's the same Gemara. I'm talking about Moshe's height. Yeah. Yeah. I don't remember the details there, but Moshe was described as being very tall and strong.
10 tefachim must be symbolic thing. Really 10 tefachim. Go above this like jump higher. Yeah.
Right. Again, so first of all, by Shabbos not symbolic. Shabbos is a halachic divide. Right. So let's start with the halachic divide, and then we'll talk about what it means in this case. You're right. So if you're in the Rishus HaRabim, let's say in the public domain. Where is the public domain? If I go into the street, right, and I'm holding something. So if I I throw an object in the Rishus HaRabim and it sticks to a wall, right, and I threw it 4 tefachim. In theory, it traveled 4 tefachim, but only if it lands. What if it doesn't land? Well, how does something not land? The Gemara talks about like a piece of gum that you threw in sticks or a spitball. It's stuck to the wall above 10 tefachim. So it never landed. I haven't carried. I haven't performed a malacha. So why is that? Because to have a masa akira and hanacha, to lift it up and put it down, it has to be off the ground and then back on the ground, or off the ground, moved, and then rest in order to be over. If I hadn't done that, I haven't done anything. So Rishus HaRabim eina ela ad gova asar tefachim ilu sheyachid ola ad rakia. But the private domain, in my backyard, that goes up to the heavens. Af ma'aver lasar tefachim, even beyond 10 tefachim. So that's interesting. So what do we see? This is a really fascinating idea. It's actually, I'm thinking a lot about this for Shabbos HaGadol. It's talking about the reach of one's arm, the symbolism of the Zroa, the shank bone at the Seder. Anyway, so he says that the Rishus HaRabim doesn't go, it's only up to 10 tefachim, but a private domain can go up to the Rakia. Shabbos Kodesh Megala Lano es HaMetzius HaMitich Ki Olam Haner Hano Rishus Hayachid Shokash Baruch Veino Mevado. That really the world is God's Rishus. You put the candle above 10 tefachim, like by Hanukkah candles. That's where it provides light. During the week, we visit in the private domain of Hashem. So on Shabbos, we see the truth. But during the 6 days of creation, it's a public domain. We are dwelling in the darkness, and it's kiviyachol, we're in the Rishus HaRabim. Could be a courtyard is the courtyard is a Carmelite. It's neither Rishus Yachid or Rishus HaRabim. Is your backyard fenced in? Your home, if it's fenced in, yeah. That's correct. The road may be a Rishus HaRabim, the road could be a Mavui or a Chatzer, which could be a Carmelis. Yeah, and this is now we're speaking metaphorically. This is all metaphoric. The weekdays, it would be that Rishus HaRabim, Rishus Yachid, right? And Ad Shemegiyim Yimei Chanukah L'Lantim Osano Ki Im Oso Ner Im Osa Emes Shel Bria. By the way, Purim and Hanukkah both have that. It's the light in the chol. It's the yontif that happens. Those are the yontifs that happen during the week. Those are the yontifs that happen during Galus. They don't happen during time of Nevuah. Right? They're Galustic or Chorban. Could be Nevuah. They happen during times of Chorban. We don't have the Beis Hamikdash. The Purim miracle, we don't have the Beis Hamikdash. Hanukkah, we have Beis Hamikdash, but it's a Chorban time. It's not, things are not proper, right? So the Galustic Yom Tovim. In fact, they were Yom Tovim that were established post the book we call Megillas Tainus. The Mishnayos and Meseches Rosh Hashanah talk about a book called Megillas Tainus. It's a book that contains all the holidays and all the fast days. And anything that was established, that once Megillas Tainus was closed, meaning once we no longer had that, we no longer had the right to establish new holidays. There were two exceptions that were made in history. One was Hanukkah, one was Purim, and the third was Yom Ha'atzmaut, which was most recently. And the criteria, Rav Shechter writes about this, the criteria for establishing a new holiday would be that it involves either a restoration of the Jews to the land, which Purim leads to that eventually, right? Eventually, Kodesh, you have the rebuilding of the temple, and you have Hanukkah, which is the rededication of the temple. And of course, that's why Yom Ha'atzmaut is a big deal, because it involves in thousands of years, the return of the Jewish people to sovereign land, right? So the big question by Yom Ha'atzmaut is, well, wait a minute, but they aren't religious. So that's a good question, right? And indeed, you can ask about the Chashmonaim, religious people, but they should not have been occupying positions of leadership. They shouldn't have been kings. Kohanim shouldn't be doing that. It's a klala. It's a disgrace for us. So not perfect in Hanukkah either, right? And certainly not perfect in Purim. Right? Right. They shouldn't be the ruling class. Right. So anyway, so these are all interesting questions, but we have the idea of a light that the Hanukkah and Purim represent the light in the whole. You understand the theme that it's different than a Rosh Hashanah. It's different than a Pesach or Sukkot, which are sort of very much rooted in Shavuos, rooted in the Beis Hamikdash, rooted in the Jewish people in the right place. Well, they weren't. It's not a Yom Tov. The Torah doesn't declare it as Yom Tov. The Torah doesn't say it's from Melacha. The Torah doesn't say anything about Purim or Hanukkah, right? We do have a book that describes that Bnei Israel took on a Yemei Mishteh for Purim. We have no book in the canon of Tanakh that describes the rituals of Hanukkah. Rabbinic mitzvahs were established mid'Rabbanan. It's a Yom Tov d'Rabbanan, right? It's not a Yom Tov. It means now it's from Melacha.
Line about Ner Shabbos placed on the table, which is higher than the 10th tefachim, and that's how.
So meaning Kiviyachal, we're in Hashem's domain. We're in the above 10 tefachim realm. That's what he's trying to explain, and that's why. By the way, where do we put the lights on Hanukkah? Also above, but it's during the chol. That's why it's such above 10 tefachim, below 20, but above 10. Yeah, you can't put your menorah on the floor. It has to be on a table of some form. Right, it should be 10 tefachim. Officially, it should be 10 tefachim.
It's just there.
Right.
Close to the ground.
Right. Right. It's on the ground. I think that my brother-in-law says we put them all on a table outside.
Or itself.
It is.
Or it's just where the light is.
Yeah. No, it's lower than this table. Okay, so let's finish this piece up. So Hashem visits our Rishus, right? Nechol, that's Chanukah. Hashem's in charge even of the Chol. He's in the everyday life. It's relevant to all the days of the week. Our goal is to take Shabbos and bring it into Moshe Shabbos, to have a Malav Malka, to single one more paragraph, even though someone's looking at their watch at Shalosh Shodas and telling you to go on. To drag on Shabbos a little bit longer. That's V'Noam. Bring the Shabbos into the Chol. That's V'Tein L'cha. Those are the paragraphs that everyone wants to delete, right? To bring that into the Shabbos is the goal. What's interesting to me also is that there's no Maseches Chanukah, Shas. But where do we find Chanukah? Which Masechta? There was a flood here last night. Where do we find the halachos of Chanukah? Masechah Shabbos. It's very interesting, right? In the Bameh Malikin, the whole chapter about lighting candles for Shabbos. The Gemara has a 3-page aside about Chanukah, and there's a Mishnah, and the Mishnah discusses it in Nizikin and damages. What happens if you have an animal and it's walking by has a big bundle of hay on its back, and it brushes to a Hanukkah candle and it singes the building, who's chayav to pay? That's like a total aside. But really, the nuts and bolts of Hanukkah are just 3 pages in Masechet Shabbos. You have well over 2,000 pages and almost 3,000 pages in Shas, and only 3 of them are dedicated to Hanukkah. The hidden holiday. Remember the hidden light? It's not even in Shas. Okay.
Tell us what